Imagine being hated by a fan base that claims to love the same club that you've been a part of and represented since you were 7 years old. Imagine carrying your team in countless seasons during a dark period of terrible leadership and losing a legend in the process. And imagine, despite all of the triumphs and the tribulations, you still remain one of the most polarizing athletes in the game. Of course, I'm talking about Manchester's own Marcus Rashford.
Yo. Look, me and Joe been arguing up on my days off. He told me that you're sick, but don't quit your day job. This rap shit's sick, but I ain't getting paid off. I guess I gotta show them niggas what I'm made of. I call my bro when I need something for takeoff. I bill it up and then we Great British Bake Off. It's Geordie, not Jordan.
If you're watching this video, hopefully you're a Manchester United fan, because I made this video for you, myself. I made this video for us to have a balanced conversation about a player that divides opinion amongst many of us. And while I will indeed be defending one of my favorite Manchester United players, I also believe that it is time for a new challenge for our boy. So I'm going to lay out 3 arguments that I believe are the reasons Marcus deserves more respect and praise from United fans. And if you disagree, you can hit me up in the comments. And if you agree, you can give me a like and a subscribe and tell me what other players I should make these kinds of videos about. Born in the Withenshaw section of Manchester on October 31st, 1997, Marcus Rashford is the embodiment of Manc through and through. He joined Manchester United's academy at the age of 7 and made it all the way to be the number 10 and current but aspiring talisman in a club that has gone through lots of turmoil since he's been a professional footballer. And of course, his rise, his development, his ascension is essentially what the club's brand has always been about. You can go back to the Bubsy Babes or the class of 92. Producing academy players who go on to lift trophies and break records and just do great things for the football club has always been a part of Manchester United's DNA. And I would argue we are the Premier League team. We are the English team that prides ourselves historically on producing academy talent that is good enough to compete with the best players in the world. So it is strange to me that so many people have a lack of appreciation for the academy graduates that have come through the United ranks, who have won trophies for our club, despite our club being on a downward spiral. And many people seem to be convinced that the players are the people to blame for this, when in fact, we all know it is the rotten ownership that has been sucking the lifeblood and money and resources and any sense of serious football direction from our club since 2005. And of course, I'm talking about the American family, the Glazers. United were always going to suck after Sir Alex Ferguson retired. And I got to repeat that again. We were always going to suck and go down a downward spiral. And I oftentimes find myself really struggling to understand why people think that every single player that we sign or every single player that stays with our club needs to be world class, when in reality, even during Sir Alex's days, not every single player was world class, particularly towards the end of his tenure as United gaffer. So when it comes to a player like Marcus Rashford, I've personally always believed that he is who he is. I've never thought that he was going to be the next Mbappe, the next Ronaldo. I never thought that he was going to be the next Giggs. I never thought that he was going to be the next Manchester United legend. We got to remember how my boy debuted against FC Michelin, Louis van Gaal's, I believe, second season in charge at the club. Anthony Martial getting injured in a warm-up, 2 other strikers that were ahead of Marcus in the pecking order from the academy not being available due to injuries as well. The kid was a teenager, made his debut and scored a brace in Europe, and then went on to make his debut in the Premier League and scored a brace against our bitter rivals Arsenal. So when I think about just his ascension, he was somebody who was never supposed to be here. And so I feel like he's actually accomplished a lot, considering his position and where he was in the pecking order during the time of his debut. Additionally, when you compare Marcus to the other academy talents that have graduated and have stayed with their parent club, there are only 2 players in the league currently that come in comparison. And I don't think we would call them world class yet, but I think we would call them elite based on what they've done for their clubs. And the only 2 players, one of them it's only won 1 trophy with their club, and the other one is on a stacked oil money club. And of course, I'm talking about Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka. Find me another player that's currently playing in the league that has rose from the academy and in a top 6 team or in any team in the Premier League that has scored more goals, that have gotten more assists, and that have gotten more trophies than any of those 3 players. And when you rank them, Marcus Rashford does rank first. Additionally, when you compare Marcus's goal contributions to other Manchester United legends, he's in the top 20 goal scorers for the club of all time, and he ranks higher than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Let's just keep that in mind, right? A lot of people will make the argument that he's played a significant more number of matches, but the reality is, again, he's also been overused and over-relied on as a youngster. And when we look at the list of people that he ranks and he can speak with, we're talking about Andy Cole, we're talking about Ale, we're talking about Ronaldo, we're talking about Ryan Giggs. In fact, in terms of Manchester United wingers, when you rank the wingers in terms of goal scoring, it is Giggsy, it is Ronaldo, and then it is Marcus Rashford. So the amount of absolute disrespect and hate that so many of our so-called fans have placed on a young lad who's only played for the badge is completely uncalled for, and to me, disgusting and somewhat racist, if I just gotta be honest. But I'll get back to the racist point in a little bit. One of the things that people seem to forget in terms of the over-reliance on Marcus Rashford, and just individual players in general, since we've been in this post-Sir Alex Ferguson era, think about how many players, no matter the manager, we have had to pray, are in form or, can stay healthy as Manchester United fans for us to even have a chance at being relevant or winning anything. We've over-relied recently on Bruno. We've over-relied recently on Garnacho during Eric Ten Hag's era. We over-relied on Paul Pogba in many ways, in thinking that he was going to be this all-around world-class midfielder. I think people forget that Rashford played for 2 seasons with a back injury and a shoulder injury that required surgery. He did this because he was playing for Ole. He did this because he was playing for the badge. And a lot of people may say, well, that's water under the bridge. That's in the past. But again, when people try to question my bro's character, my bro's commitment, I understand the body language. I understand he's going through bad spells. Trust me, I'm a Marcus Rashford fan. And I get it. I'd be disappointed too if my favorite player just phased out and acted like he didn't care for the club. But let's not forget all the things that this boy has done and the pressure that has been on this young man's shoulders, again, since he's debuted for Manchester United. And a lot of people will say to that, man, Bliss, I don't care about the pressure. He makes all that money. He should be good when it comes to the pressure. He makes all that money. Those are solid numbers. He needs to be balling like him. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you that Rashford isn't as good as Salah. And if you ever thought that, you were stupid. If you thought that Rashford was good enough to make $300,000 a week, you were stupid. But this is Manchester United, man. We were handing contracts out to Phil Jones, and he was never playing for us and injured. Come on, y'all. We should know better than this. We know that our club mismanages funds. We know that our club hands out stupid contracts and player extensions. We know that our club overinflates players' values when they buy them, and that's why we get fleeced on signings like Anthony. We got to think about all of this stuff in the context. People try to vilify Rashford when so many different legends and former coaches have said that he's a relatively timid figure, relatively soft-spoken in the dressing room. But yet you have certain people in our fan base who look at him with the tattoos, who look at him with his off-field drip and how he kind of dresses himself, who look at him and the color of his skin, and look at him and all the things that he's done for people who look like him and others that even don't look like him, that just come from working class parts of Manchester, and they hate on him. And they'll tell you that he's not focused on football. He's not in love with the game. Well, after over 200 and something odd appearances for Manchester United and 85 goals later, 87 goals later, however many bro has right now, I didn't check the stats, and dealing with the toxic fan base and being called a monkey by, fellow countrymen when you miss a penalty in the World Cup, I would be pretty, taken back as well. I would be pretty mentally messed up as well if these are things that I've been dealing with, and I'm not even 30 yet as a young lad, just trying to enjoy football and represent where I'm from and represent the club that I love. Now, it is December 18th, and so by this time, a statement actually has been, or not a statement, but an interview has been given by Rashy, in which he has said that maybe it is time for a new challenge, and that when he leaves Manchester United, it'll be on his terms, and he will give a statement then. And while it is unfortunate that we have gotten to this point, that things have gotten so toxic to this point, at the same time, I have thought since Ragnick came in, actually, that it is time for Rashy to go. And I will say that because the prototypical winger now doesn't really survive in many of the most elite teams. We see it with Liverpool. As disgusting as I, feel about them, or disgusted as I feel about them, you can't help but think about Salah and his work rate. You can't help but think about Sadio Mane and his work rate when he was there. And even as a forward player, you can't help and think about the work rate of someone like Roberto Firmino. I think that those players are truly elite players. They can do things on both sides of the ball, and they will run and bust a lung for their gaffer and for their club. And I'm not saying Rashford won't do those things, but as an only very good player, we know that Broski has never really been interested in tracking back. We know that Broski has never really been interested in doing a lot of pressing. And I am upset about that. I've been disappointed by that. And I've also been able to understand that, for where we was as a club, similar to a player like Scott McTominay, Rashford was able to provide a vital aspect of the game that we needed for a long time. And now, under a new manager like Ruben Amorim, who has different ideas, the reality is there isn't much space for a player like Rashford. Just like under Erik ten Hag, who wanted to keep Scott McTominay, but Ineos, our new owners, or I guess new owners, wanted to go in a different direction. They had to get rid of Scott because for what he was, a limited midfielder, but an attacking midfielder at heart who was a box crasher to score goals, they didn't need him. And now he's in Napoli thriving. And I wish the same thing for Rashford because it does look like he is going to go. But I'll end the video here with just saying that don't do the same thing that y'all did to Rashford to Garnacho, which a lot of people are already doing. If we have academy players that are good enough to compete, good enough to give us great moments, and good enough to win trophies like our new youngsters are, let's back them. Let's get behind them. We know they may be limited. We know that they may have a limited time with us at the club. But what precedent do we set as fans when we have very, very good academy talent and we don't show them any love? As a fan base, I'd be careful for the karma that is out there that may come back on us if we really call ourselves Manchester United fans.